welcome to Blacklisted Radio. It's the 22nd day of February 2015. My name is Doug Owen, and you can join me live on our website, blacklistedradio.com. That's the website dedicated to the show. We have streams, we have an interactive chat room, and plenty of features on the house for you there, exclusive content, and much, much more. Tonight, we are going to be talking about fear. Keeping fear alive will be the underlying meme of the show. If you have been paying attention to the world this week, there is plenty of things the government would like to remind you to be fearful of. I've said it often, and I'll say it again. The one reason that government is effective in extracting wealth and your time, essentially, from you is that they pretend and seemingly can provide you security. So a lot of people think that, well, they'll do anything that is necessary. They'll pay any price if the government can keep them safe. Though, if you look at just about every statistic out there, you can pretty much see for yourself that they do a pretty bad job, by and large. And I'm not bagging on just the U.S. government, the Department of Homeland Security, and we'll be talking about that, but governments in general do a pretty bad job of keeping their constituents, the people that they are there to support in a benign way. That is something that just doesn't occur very often. And usually the apparatus that is being created in quote-unquote their best interests ends up being used against them. So I was informed by producer Mike, who is diligently working the board, that John Stadmiller, the owner of RBN, our syndicate and the radio network that broadcasts this show and makes it available to affiliates and other interested platforms, is here in studio somewhere and wanted to drop in. So if he is there, John Stadmiller, welcome.
I'm as close to the studio as you are right now in Round Rock.
Oh, okay. Okay, so you're remoting in there.
Yeah. I'm remoting my home telephone, hardwired telephone from the couch here in Round Rock.
Technology. It's bringing us together.
Hey, glad to have you back on the network, my friend.
Yeah, it's, I was telling people that this is really where I first cut my teeth on terrestrial and internet radio with Mike Chambers on his show that aired here probably, now 5-6 years back. And so it's been a while, but happy to be here. And so it's kind of a synchronicity that it's come full circle like this.
I couldn't have put it better. Hey, look, you only have an hour here, so I'm not going to tie up a lot of your time. Doug, we are doing a pledge drive for the network. Simply, I haven't had an opportunity to speak to you. You're a hard man to track down. Even though I live in the same city in this big, wide world, I can never seem to get a hold of you if we haven't met. And I'd like to do a face-to-face and maybe have some lunch with you this week or maybe next week if that's convenient. But at any rate, we're doing a pledge drive for the network. Call us at 800-724-2719 and make a credit card donation. And do it while you're thinking about it. It'll only take a couple of minutes, and we would greatly appreciate it. Doug, I won't take up any more of your time. I know you got a lot to talk about this hour, and I thank you so much. And let's get together real soon here.
All right, sounds good. And I take it as a compliment that it's hard to get a hold of me and that I'm elusive, because that's what you have to be in this day and age. So we'll definitely do that. And it's not that I'm trying to hide from you, but there's plenty of people out there that are interested in getting into your phone and interested in tracking and tracing every movement that you make every day. So it's something to consider. So thanks for that, John. And it brings us to a story that I think is very relevant, and that is Peter Osborne, his resignation from the Telegraph, a very renowned paper, over the dramatically inaccurate and cover-up of HSBC. Some of the allegations that the paper would not go after this bank and all of its corruption and, of course, the investments by Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton's foundation, the Clinton Global Initiative. So he whistle blew and probably likely lose his career in mainstream media and probably will, blacklist himself because of his revelations. And he said something that I thought was very interesting, and it hits right to what John said, and that is that if people out there don't invest in media, in the canary in the coal mine, in to a medium that serves their own interests, then there is going to be somebody else that is going to buy the hearts and minds in the media, and they're going to pay for it. And those are corporate interests. Those are banking interests like HSBC. See, it used to be that there was a newspaper circulation. And yeah, they would have advertisements. It was a dual model where half of the revenue, more than half of the revenue in some cases, came from readers. People paid to have the Wall Street Journal delivered to their house. People paid to have Forbes write information and articles and provide analytics on different stories related to business. They trusted those sources, and the sources worked for those people because they were paying their salaries. And what has happened, one of the things that has changed so much with the internet, for better or worse, is that people no longer want to pay for information. And now today you see the repercussion of that, and that is that almost everything is clickbait. People create a huge amount of hyperbolic content deliberately to get you to click on it, and most of the stuff you end up clicking on has very little value. Go to BuzzFeed, go to Vox, go to the Huffington Post, and you'll find that most of the headlines and the alternative media itself is not exempt from this, where you'll see a headline, and I'll just throw one out there. Here's a hypothetical. Man shot in the face by cops 15 times for eating pie at CiCi's Pizza. You're like, oh my God, that sounds horrible. Why would that darn cop do that? And then you start reading the story, and the headline couldn't be farther from the truth. And the ultimate reason that the cop shot this guy was because he was holding a child hostage, or some other fantastical scenario. So the headline is intended to mislead you, to get you to click on it, and that is because it serves an advertisement to you. It's because it serves those who pay for that media. It does not serve the people that it is supposed to be informing. And that has been a huge dynamic shift, and it is one that is it's still yet to be seen how that will, the democratization of information, if that will really serve people in the long run. And that depends on people like you out there that want viable information that's curtailed to your interest, not corporate interest, not political interest, or the interest of other people other than you, quite frankly. So something to think about as we delve into some of the headlines and some of the things that we will focus on tonight. A couple make goods. One of the things that's unique, or maybe not unique about this show, but one of the things that I think bears mention is that we ourselves are completely corporate sponsor free. We, like RBN, rely on donations. And for the people out there that support the work we do, that understand the benefit and the value they can put and invest into this show, which we can then provide free of charge to syndicates like RBN and others that can monetize this show. So we don't really monetize the show in a corporate fashion, but others can, and that's one of the things that is valuable to them, because they can obviously sell this show in all of its different formats and variations to potential advertisers. So one of the things that we like to do is help ourselves to help others, if you will. I know that's a really bad way to put it, but by relying solely on listeners' donations, our only mission is to focus on the show that we're providing. It should be entertaining, unbiased, informative, and the perspective should be in the sole interest of the people that are listening and support the network. And so RBN has a dual model where donations offset that corporate reliance. And I've been there. I've worn that hat. it's a hard thing it's a hard balance because, quite frankly, the model I use it has not been effective. I know this is all self-interested, but it has not been effective in that it can support producers like producer Mike there and providing a brick and mortar business. Most of the people that are able to do that in the podcast world have fame from their positions in media, in Hollywood, and they were able to get that fan base that allows them to be independent. Opie and Anthony come to mind, Joe Rogan podcast, that comes to mind. There's a lot of them that are out there that are able to now free themselves from the mainstream media constraints and from corporate dominance. But they, of course, are famous people, which I am not. So the information itself has to speak to the listener. I hope it does. We will continue and get into it. And welcome back. It's Blacklisted Radio. I'm your host, Doug Owen. You can join me on air if you'd like to chime in. You can call us at 800-313-9443, and you can go to blacklistedradio.com. You can enjoy the interactive chat room that I am going to right now. And I should just go ahead and do that. You can also text us, 512-222-3067. That's available to you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, anywhere in the world. If you text us at 512-222-3067 with questions, comments, complaints, ideas, information, whistle blows, all of that, we receive it. And you can leave us voicemails if you'd like it to be played on the show, if it's funny, if it's something that we can use, a creative, some kind of asset. We do that from time to time as well. And we started the show with a donation pledge from the owner of RBN. And if you're not paying for the media, somebody's paying to give you media. That's all there is to it. And to think that there's a free ride, to think that you're going to get an unbiased media without investing in people that are solely interested in your informational awareness, in your perspective, and arming you with information that you can use, then you are sorely wrong and will be misled by those that are claiming to, of course, inform you for your own best interest. So be careful of that. And if you do find independent voices that are speaking volumes of truth to you, you should support those, obviously. And we talked about the Telegraph and some of the corporate pressure that we've seen. Cheryl Atkinson, Atkins, that's a diet. Atkins, she was at CBS News and was chastised and basically run off air for her questioning of genetically modified organisms, of the Obama administration. She was targeted just like James Risen of the New York Times. I mean, there's a lot of easy case in points that I could reference to show you where people in the media that decided to go off script have paid the price, and their careers are quickly and unceremoniously ended, and they become virtually blacklisted. That environment and that whole economic model has absolutely slowed down progress towards having an open and free media. And that is an illusion, I think, that you're going to have people that are going to spend time and effort to inform those out there for no monetary gain. You just can't do it these days. You just can't. Some people do have the time to invest and put forth those efforts, but you're just not going to get that kind of coverage that speaks to you and speaks to your interests. So with that, we move to the topic, fear. Fear is a great way to sell people on stuff. It's a great way to push an agenda, and there's plenty of that out there today. Keeping fear alive is the topic, and it brings us to our first story. The DHS shutdown. As DHS shutdown looms, Jed Johnson issues terror warning to Mall of America customers. This is an article short little piece that I pinned that you can find at the top of blacklistednews.com currently that examines, well, his revelation of a new terrorist threat for the shoppers of the Mall of the Americas. And it is interestingly timed, just as the congressional budget deadline on the 27th and possible shutdown nears. This very conveniently timed new domestic terror alert was issued today. And oddly enough, I walked by the television and I saw Jeh. I like to call him Jeh. I think it's J, but we'll just call him Jeh because it's spelled Jeh. And I have literally zero respect for him, so who cares what he calls himself? He was issuing this terror threat and saying that they have, quote, they have some intel and that people at the mall today need to be, quote, particularly careful. They need to be vigilant. They need to be aware, and they need to be cautious. And all of this in spite of new security measures that were just rolled out. And I thought that was interesting that CNN reported that they have new security measures. And there's always a reason that you have new security measures. A little backtracking, a little flashback. All of these were actually instituted, their new measures, because of protesters that threatened and harassed and, quote unquote, were spied on by the Mall of Americas. And they have conspiracy charges mounted against them that will probably end in some kind of judiciary deadlock and probably won't go very far as per usual. But nonetheless, interesting that this new upgraded security is just in time for the terror threat. So, conveniently timed. Do you take this to be sacrosanctimonious, the sacrosanct above all, or do you think, there could be something more to this? Convenient timing. Could it be politically motivated? I asked the question, a scare tactic, the government using domestic terror against the American people and Congress to extort them for more federal funding. Now, I know a lot of you listening to the podcast may be offended by that question. Would our own government extort and use fear against our elected representatives in Congress and the people of this country to put forward an agenda to justify the Department of Homeland Security and the money that we give to it? Well, here's a few examples. This is a little flashback to 2004 when Tom Ridge admitted in his book, which was read by virtually no one, and believe you me, Jed Johnson is going to write a book that nobody is going to read that will quote, I'm sure, some of the things that led to this terror alert. Remember when we had the multi-coded or color-coded system and you had different colors of fear? There was the orange alert, the red alert, the yellow alert. Problem being, which is worse, yellow or orange? People couldn't figure it out, and it was hard to get some kind of brand identification with the level of fear required by the state to push forward things like the Patriot Act and NSBD 51, the National Security Presidential Directive instituting the shadow government, on and on and on. John Warner Defense Reauthorization Bill, all of those things that have led us to, well, being under the thumb of a new agency that was created out of crises, synthetic or real. It was created when people used fear, as they have and continue to do, as a way to push forward their political agenda. It's called terrorism, my friends. Anyway, Ashcroft, remember him? Remember that horrible song that he sang? That was really the most memorable thing that I think people will take away from his career is his singing and how stupid he looked. I wish I had to drop an audio drop for you guys out there. There's a little bit of a radio visual. But anyway, Ashcroft's Justice Department rolled out terrorism announcements frequently to give Bush a boost in the polls against Democrat John Kerry. So Just one case in point where terror and terror alerts have been used to push forward political agendas, just like they're using today. We will take a quick break and come back with much more right here on Blacklisted Radio. Stay tuned. Convenient politics. It's just easy to decry everything is fake, everything is unreal, and that absolves us from having to participate in the current reality. And I understand why people get to that place, because sometimes when you look at reality, it's just not that interesting. It just seems that what we're being told is truth, is reality. Couldn't be farther from the truth, and that confuses people, and that's why if you look at TV viewership, it's at all-time low. Okay, each and every year, more and more people are turning off their TVs. They're turning on content like this show and the syndicates of broadcast just like this. They're turning on podcasts. They are listening to, they're finding independent voices that speak to things they like, whether it's video games and people showing you how to play Minecraft and teaching you things that are more specific to your interest rather than being on the clock. So that is the shift. We've been talking about media and the ongoing pledge drive that RBN is having. And I mentioned John Ashcroft, and I want to thank Craig, producer Craig33, who brought us this gem. And this is all I'll ever remember of John Ashcroft, other than he did use terror and propaganda against the American people for George W. Bush.
This eagle's place is in the sky.
Oh, yeah, it is. Way up there. Way up high.
She's still got a lot of flying to do.
And by eagle, he means the Department of Homeland Security.
You can see it in her eye.
No, this is real. This is not a joke.
She's cried a bit for what we've put her through.
America, you have been scorned by Al-Qaeda.
She soared above the lifted lamp that guards sweet freedom's door. In the dews, the damps, the watchfires of a nation torn by war. Oh, she's far too young to die.
Oh, yeah.
You can see
We've got many more people to kill. There are people out there that need to die. And, as one Fox News host said about the people that we are fighting and why we are now allowing ISIS or ISIS friendlies or CIA-vetted moderates in Syria to call airstrikes is because of that freedom. And John Ashcroft to get an eagle, and as one Fox lady said, it's a real simple solution. All we have to do is...
We need to kill them. We need to kill them.
So, simple enough, easy solutions for complicated problems, and that is the American way. And Mr. John Ashcroft articulated such by issuing orange-coated threat colors or threat banners during the Bush election or re-election campaign against John F. Kerry. So there you go. Just a few examples of the U.S. using terror and terror alerts to politically motivate people to support them and to give them money and funding. So it's going to be interesting if Congress does back down and does not pay for the Department of Homeland Security, as I boldly predicted. Not that it's much of a stretch. We may see interesting things happening in the next few days. Of course, this is not something that I think Jay Johnson came up with himself. He's just taking a page from what other people have used over and over again. One such person is the former FBI assistant director that in a new documentary film said that to keep budgets high, we must keep fear alive. And I've actually gone to the extreme, going through the legwork of creating a Keep Fear Alive shirt, and we are going to use the hashtag Keep Fear Alive, I think, for the show. At least it should be a mantra. Keeping fear alive. It's important to keep people under the jackboot of the Department of Homeland Security, and the FBI, they know how to do this. Here's the actual audio.
If you're submitting budget proposals for a law enforcement agency, for an intelligence agency, You're not going to submit the proposal that we won the war on terror and everything's great, because the first thing's going to happen is your budget's going to be cut in half. You know, it's my opposite of Jesse Jackson's keep hope alive. This is keep fear alive. Keep it alive.
Keep it alive, baby. Keep fear alive.
It's almost too delicious to believe, my friend.
You know, it's pretty prototypical. James Comey recently asked why the FBI is keeping its secret, its relationship, and the use and deliverance of surveillance equipment, a.k.a. the Stingray, which is put in locations where the government wants to soak up massive amounts of data from people's cell phones without any kind of impetus or warrant or any legal justification. And if you ask about it, if you think that you should know if your police department has it, they go to a very simple answer. Bad people, because of bad people, terrorists, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, others out there, we can't tell you about how we're violating your rights. Anyway, it was just a matter of time before the war on terror turned inward, and we've been watching that. If you've been keeping up with CNN and their reporting, they have now determined that right-wing violent ideologies and immoral sociopaths, the people that are part of the sovereign citizen movement, are more dangerous than ISIS. Now, if you went to blacklistednews.com this morning and saw these ISIS guys, the ISIS crisis, there's a really revealing video that shows these ISIS trainees doing karate. They are it's better than the Al-Qaeda handlebar or jungle gym videos where you saw Al-Qaeda terrorists trading to wage jihad against America, which, you know, I can eat it up like potato chips. I find it to be so entertaining. This is better. This is better. Go to blacklistednews.com. I know it's a radio visual. It's not going to do any justice to talk about it, but you really see the caliber of people that we are fighting. And we've been told over and over again that the U.S. government, as we mentioned last week, has to have the internet kill switch. They have to control social media and have backdoors into every one of our phones. It is the retroactive justification why they have hacked and are controlling the encryption keys to all of your SIM cards in your cell phones, and that is because of ISIS. Well, the sovereign citizens are even more dangerous. There's people out there, like on the Bundy Ranch, that think that they are immune to the laws of the United States. And I'll be the first one to tell you that philosophically, I believe that I'm a sovereign and free person, independent of any true jurisdiction that I deem not legitimate. And I think most people do. Why? Because people break the rules. People do things that are illegal all the time. And it's not because there aren't enough laws. It's not because the penalties aren't high enough. It's because people dictate what it is that they believe is real and what it is that is just. Perfect case in point would be the widespread and popular use of jury nullification. This is where independent people in a jury determine that regardless of the judge's determination or interpretation of law, regardless of how great the state prosecutor may be and what a compelling case he may have given, that ultimately the underpinning of the law that was broken is unjust and not legal and must be ignored. That takes precedence. Now, a lot of you out there that are, government sycophants, you would say, well, this is horrible. It's terrible. People just deciding on their own what laws to enforce and not to. Apparently, it's fine for the Justice Department to figure out which laws they want to enforce. When it comes to illegal immigration, not really interested. When it comes to, making sure that they put their thumb on your back, to pay every penny, and if you don't, you're completely screwed. And the burden of proof is upon you, and you have to engage in the legal system. That's something that they're really interested in. So it kind of shows you their motivations and the fact that everybody selectively chooses which laws they want to enforce and which ones people want to abide by. We'll continue with that thought. It's Blacklisted Radio. When you're not part of the system, when you are not on board with the agenda, you are running counter to the state. And we dedicate this show to you out there, the civil disobedience, those out there that think beyond the matrix. So one of the big problems the federal government is at least lauding as a reason that they need automatic machine guns and tanks and APC carriers, and why the Department of Homeland Security and the U.S. military is funding the militarization of your local police departments and giving them IED training and sending them to privately run camps where they learn to treat you as an insurgent, is under the guise that there's a few people out there that are crazy enough to think that the people in government are not legitimate and their laws are not applicable to them. Well, sorry, sovereign citizens. You too, my friends, are subject to the interpretation of the law. And I hear this all the time, and I know there's a lot of people out there that are big into natural law and common law. I myself completely subscribe to the philosophical and political ideology of individualism and being independent of the state, and that our rights come from property ownership, paramount being our bodies. So I already, I guess, at least sympathize and believe that is really truly the way the world should work, and that anything less is probably illegitimate, or that it is it is up to you out there in the general public to determine whether or not they want to follow those laws. That's a very dangerous precedent that has been set, and yeah, there's people out there that believe that the government doesn't have a right to take their property or whatever they deem to be their property, whether they're squatting in a house or that the government seized it or a bank seized it legally, illegally. Regardless, it is a system that we operate under today in the United States of America that is subjective, and popular consent, popular belief, and really, at the end of the day, perception becomes reality. If people perceive that what you're doing is illegitimate, then they will cast stones, and it doesn't matter if you can prove to them beyond a reasonable doubt that you're correct. Ultimately, people do whatever it is that they think is right, and most of the time they follow their own belief systems. Problem being is that when you say that you're sovereign and independent from this legal jurisdiction, most people are not going to buy that. No matter how well you articulate it, you might have sympathetic jurors, probably not, because people are brainwashed, for lack of a better term or a more in-depth analysis. People are brainwashed, and they believe that anybody that bucks the state or that runs counter, that dares to question, could be trouble, and probably is, and is not paying their fair share of taxes. That's the mantra. I hear it all the time. I run against it. So Ron Paul, he is still vocal and I think relevant, and he wrote a piece. He penned a piece about Obama's force authorization and how this will be a blank check for war worldwide. The AUMF is the first since 2002, this resolution where Bush went to Congress to get this, I don't think it's an empirical or limitless power, but it is used that way, and it is believed that the Congress can give the authority to the president to wage limitless and geographically unlimited war anywhere in the world. And this could extend to the Ukraine, where we have a situation that's completely degrading day by day. And we're not going to focus on that in the show, but you could see how the U.S. could, because we're engaged in so many different proxy wars, mostly to buck Russia, that this authorization could extend beyond that. Ironically, the authorization would only really give authorization to things that are already happening and is unnecessary and kind of redundant if you look at all the other executive orders. But nonetheless, going to Congress gives the illusion that there is consent by the governed, by you out there. You're being represented. And the truth is that this will require the presence. I wanted to mention that Ron Paul took a stab at Brian Williams. He said, quote, "Our government has no more credibility in telling us the truth about the facts that require us to expand our military presence in this region than Brian Williams," which I'm just going to quickly sidebar and say, who cares? I mean, does anybody think that he's a journalist? He reads a teleprompter. It's not like he's going out there and doing investigative journalism. He's given guided tours by the military to see what they want him to report on, and he sweetened his story. I've sweetened stories. I used to tell people that I played football and that that I was a right tackle. Not true, but I thought it made me cool, and I thought it was a way to relate with other people. I thought it was a way to start a conversation with those that, and this is my early 20s, and it's the same thing for Brian Williams. He thought, he can relate to this military guy in this Stars and Stripes interview by telling him that, he was under fire and he took on fire while he was in a helicopter. He tried to sweeten the story. Hillary Clinton did the same thing, though not receiving nearly as much scrutiny for saying that back in 1996, while visiting Lebanon, that she took on fire. Well, we saw the videos, and CBS diligently did an expose on Hillary's lies, and people don't seem that offended by it. If we counted the countless lies that have come out of the administration, the media has done nothing to counter Jay Johnson's threats by the Department of Homeland Security, even though we know that the Department of Homeland Security and their representatives have a history, a track record of lying and using terror against the people to justify their own jobs and their budgets. So you're not going to get a lot of scrutiny of the status quo of the military might from the U.S. mainstream media. So don't expect it. All right, so we have ISIS, which is the end-all, be-all. Besides the sovereign citizens, they're even more scary. And if you're not crapping your pants about them, let's go back to ISIS for a moment. The Pentagon revealed, ironically, that 25,000 troops are headed to Mosul to take on the group, the terrorist organization known as ISIS. At least two world leaders say are controlled by Mossad and the CIA, and I tend to agree with them, although it's self-serving for their positions. We'll get to that, but nonetheless, we'll see what comes of this. And boots on the ground? Oh yeah. Going back there, mission accomplished? Oh no. There's still more to do, and there's still more people that need to be killed, and we are leading the way. We have trainers, and we have operators on the ground working with and leading this military unit, 25,000 strong. So that should be interesting. If things turn out the way that I believe they will, we will see quite a show. But let's talk about two people that may not make it to the next Blacklisted Radio podcast. That is Omar al-Bashir. He says CIA and Mossad are behind the Boko Haram and ISIL groups. He is the Sudan president. He said, quote, CIA and the Mossad stand behind these organizations. There is no Muslim who would carry out such acts, end quote. So, I don't know about that. A real Muslim, we can debate what Muslim is and who's Muslim and who's just, a crank or, crazy zealot. But interestingly enough, there is a guy that has been a whistleblower in a sense that releases little nuggets of information and brings little softballs to the mainstream media, and that's General Wesley Clark, who also said, wow, we're out of time, that it was the U.S. enabling and funding zealots to go after Hezbollah. He is just one of many people that is starting to get a viewpoint of what's happening out there today. Hey, thanks for the time. I'll be back next week. We will do it again. Until then, you can find me online at blacklistedradio.com and at blacklistednews.com with all the news and headlines that you can, of course, arm yourself with. Until then, take care.
Thank you for listening to Blacklisted Radio. This podcast is truly independent, commercial-free, and supported exclusively by listeners just like you. Please help us continue producing corporate sponsor-free media with your donation at blacklistedradio.com today.